Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about state. We're going to talk about State Department and what goes on behind the scenes. And we're going to talk about a news story that, at time of filming, is not a news story yet. But I feel like it's going to become one. For the last couple of weeks, there's probably been, on average, a video a day that could best be described as me explaining the gap between U.S. diplomats' public statements, the diplomats you know the name of, and the actual actions of U.S. diplomacy that are conducted by the people who you don't know the name of. Those people who are foreign policy experts, area experts, country experts, the people who I've described as those who, specialize in the art of the possible. We are talking about the people that Biden brought on for that amazing foreign policy team before he even took office. That crew. You have those two groups inside State Department. And there has been a huge gap in what one group says and what the other group is doing. I personally have found this very annoying. Come to find out, State Department finds it annoying as well. Inside state, there's a thing called the dissent channel. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a place where those mid-level diplomats, those people who you don't know the name of, where they can write a memo. And that memo goes up to the people who you do know the name of. And they can basically come out and be very open and say, this is where you're messing up. You're in the mess around stage right now. You're going to be in the find out phase soon. And they can speak very freely in this channel. It's something State Department fosters to allow, two ways of communication. Memos that go into the dissent channel, they don't normally become public. One has leaked. One of the biggest criticisms in what can only be described as a scathing memo is the gap between what they're actually doing and what gets presented in public. That's a big part of it. And that gap, not just is it bad because you, the American people, don't necessarily know what they're doing, it's also damaging to U.S. foreign policy interests because it shapes the regional perception of the U.S. and what the U.S. is doing. If you don't follow foreign policy, if you haven't been watching channels that have been translating what is being said versus what they're actually doing, you would be forgiven for thinking that the U.S. has just co-signed everything that's going on right now. That is not the case. The memo highlights that, and then it highlights what the diplomats who actually do the work, what they think about certain activities that Israel has engaged in. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because for the last couple of weeks, anytime I read a quote from somebody, I get hate mail that basically acts like I wrote it. But I'm going to read the least scathing thing in it. We must publicly criticize Israel's violation of international norms, such as a failure to limit offensive operations to legitimate military targets. That's the least scathing thing in it. It goes on from there. So the short version is the diplomats who do the work, the area experts, the foreign policy experts at state, they are super unhappy with how the messaging is coming across to the public. It's also worth noting that my understanding is that this is not the only memo. The one that leaked is not the only one that is circulating in the dissent channel right now. So what does this mean? The standard policy for state is to not comment on anything that comes out of the dissent channel. That's their normal thing. And the reason that's a policy is because they really do want people to be able to write memos like this and say you're messing up. They really do try to foster that free flow of ideas and information. So it is incredibly unlikely that state comment on this directly. That being said, there might be a shift in their messaging. They may go to greater lengths to explain like why they're trying to get aid when there's not going to be a pause and stuff like that. They might go to greater lengths to explain what they're doing, which I think would be incredibly helpful, because a lot of what they're doing, it would help cool tensions. If more Arab states knew what the U.S. was doing in regards to trying to get relief and trying to get aid and trying to urge restraint and all of that stuff, it might cool things off. Now, at the same time, I haven't commented on what conversations might be happening behind the scenes with those countries because I don't know. I can't even guess. For all we know, state has told their governments what they're doing, which would help explain why there was a relatively easy time when it came to trying to make sure that everything didn't escalate. So that could be happening, but that's only the government. A lot of the people who might act are not members of the government, so it needs to be public. The other thing is you might see a shift in language from Biden or members of the Biden administration, because a lot of this, it's actually good politics if it was put out, which is part of the reason I've had a hard time figuring out why they're not talking about it. So you might start to see that. The fact that this got leaked means that there's going to be a conversation about it, because some of the stuff that's in this, it's not something that would ever be expected to come from U.S. government officials. So there's going to be a conversation. My guess is that this is going to turn into a pretty big story. If not, and you want to read everything, you can Google dissent channel, and you'll probably find it pretty quickly. But it's probably going to be a rough week at State Department. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.